Venus and star blessings, everybody. Let's take a quick look at the full moon coming up in Aries. So this will be taking place on the 17th of October. That is Melbourne, Australia time. So it will be the 16th for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. I'll just close this door. As I mentioned, I'm in the process of moving, so I've got lots of boxes and stuff behind me, hence just doing an audio today. Okay, so 24 degrees of Aries, the moon, as you can see, it's conjunct Chiron. There's the sun at 24 degrees of Libra, and the most obvious and most potent theme to this full moon is that it's forming a grand cross with the two big guns, as I like to call them, Pluto and Mars, which can act as very malefic type of energies. But we'll get to that in a moment. I guess the first thing, well, actually, just if I can just remind people that I have two courses available. Both of them have around about 15 classes, I think, in each, maybe a little bit more. Most of them are between 3 to 4 hours, so they're pretty intensive classes with lots of different chart examples based on the topic in question relative to the class. And I just completed a class on Lilith and Lucifer, and that's also available. So the classes are available in a single format, so you can just choose one class or you can choose the whole course. It's entirely up to you. And I am starting a third course once I move into my new home, and that won't be for a little while, but it will be coming up as soon as I can physically, be prepared for that. And that third course is going to have a lot of advanced material. And I need to create the curriculum and structure for that. So when I do, I'll post it on social media and perhaps on YouTube as well, so you can see if you're interested in those topics. I'm sure a lot of you will be. Now, here's what I wanted to show you before we talk about the full moon. Sorry, just as a side note. So just shoot me an email if you're interested in any of my classes or would like to have a reading, by the way, as well. If you do approach me for a reading, I will not be available for the next 2-3 weeks. Just keep that in mind. So the Lilith class and Lucifer class that I just did the other day, relative to Lucifer, it's a very, very interesting archetype and a very, very interesting topic, and one that many people do not speak about. And the best book written on it is by Jeffrey Wolf Green, which I highly recommend. But if I can just say this, what we are talking about is the asteroid Lucifer, okay? Not to be mistaken for the Venus star point, which can also be referred to as Lucifer, because Lucifer means light bringer or light bearer. But without going into the complexities of that class, of course, if I can just say this, that the asteroid Lucifer has this paradox about it, in that it can act as pure evil or it can act in the completely opposite manner. And I have various chart examples in that class to demonstrate that exact point. And I just want to show you guys here, just very quickly. So this is Jeffrey Dahmer's chart. Most of you would have heard of who he was. A very notorious serial killer, probably one of the worst that came along. Now, he had Lucifer exactly conjunct his sun over here in the 8th house. So he had Lucifer in Gemini. And we could even say it was conjunct Venus, and it's certainly conjunct Mercury. It actually forms a T squared to Pluto and Chiron as well. Okay, so this was pure evil manifest in this particular soul's journey. That was Lucifer, without a doubt. Now, relative to a flip side to that coin, a paradox, here is Prince's chart, the singer Prince. And without going into the complexities of his story, just know this, that if you don't already know, he was certainly, a very big advocate for emancipation and freedom, right, in the music industry and in life in general. And there's a lot of history to what he went through and what he did and what he spoke about, and how he emancipated himself from the shackles of the big giant music record companies that tried to tried to keep his money, tried to tell him who he should be, who he shouldn't be, etc. Now, he had Lucifer exactly conjunct his Saturn, and that's very, very significant given what he stood for and what he did. Now, we're talking about the second house, right, which is money and value. And so if you just remember that Lucifer can manifest in pure evil and in lesser degrees of evil as well, because there's variations of evil. And it can also manifest as pure light in that it brings forth truth and light and God and goddess and consciousness. And so that's exactly what Prince did. He basically brought light to the industry, the music industry, right, relative to money and ownership and things like that. He actually, wrote the word slave on his cheek and would come out in public with that word on his cheek. For years he did that, right, just to make a point. And so I just want to show you just how vastly different this particular archetype can manifest in people's lives. And it all comes down to the soul and the consciousness of the soul and what the soul chooses. Okay, so that's just a little side note of some Lucifer points. Okay, so getting back to the full moon coming up. First of all, let's just go back to where this cycle began, which was at the solar eclipse on the 3rd of October. You all remember that, in Libra, and I spoke about it fairly extensively, so I'm not going to repeat what I said. You can watch that video. It's on my YouTube channel. But just to recap very, very briefly, because this is part of the cycle that we are looking at relative to the full moon in Aries coming up. This is where it began, at a solar eclipse in Libra, and it's the final Libra solar eclipse until 2043. So this is a huge, huge cycle coming to a close, right? And it's an eclipse that is born from a very difficult family of eclipses, as I've mentioned in the past. And it does correspond quite a lot to relationships ending, heartache and disappointment, things like that. So when we look at the upcoming full moon in Aries, what we're looking at is where have we come to in this cycle, which is the halfway point, the full moon. And the full moon, of course, always simply illuminates where we have arrived, for better or for worse. It doesn't discriminate between illuminating only certain things or only good things, just to use a simple word. It will illuminate whatever is there, okay, for us to see. So in this case, the illumination is pretty intense, and it will not be easy for certain people. There's no question about that, because we have a cardinal grand cross involved with Pluto and Mars. And there's a lot of different things, we could say really about this grand cross. But first and foremost, let's just address a cardinal cross energy. What does that imply? Well, first of all, cardinal signs are about initiation and change. And so given Pluto stationed direct just a couple of days ago, that within itself is an extraordinary turning point for the world and for all of us, because we will never, ever see Pluto at this degree again in our lifetime. This is a massive turning point. We have had Pluto in Capricorn for the last 16 years. And as I mentioned in a shorts video, everyone has had their own personal journey. Everyone's got a personal story to tell, or multiple stories, in terms of what has taken place in the past 16 years. And then we have all the collective events as well. It hasn't been easy, you know, for the world and for a lot of people on the planet. There's no two ways about that. But I guess it's always about coming back to our own path, our own sense of realization, our own understanding, and recognizing where and how we have grown and how we are ready to move forward. And this full moon is really just a part of this larger picture, this larger context, this larger story, you know, of Pluto having been in Capricorn for so long and being now at this anaretic degree again, to never return to this degree for another 248 years. So this is, you know, massive, massive turning points. And it's not like this full moon is going to, the hallmark or describes everything. It's really kind of, it's part of a cycle, which is part of another cycle, which is part of another cycle. Everything is connected. But certainly when we have full moons, things can become, you know, more volatile. Energies can become a lot more heightened, a lot more sensitivity and so forth. And in this case, you know, we have a full moon in Aries, which is, look, the moon in Aries is not the greatest place. You know, it's quite a challenging position for the moon, actually. But on the other hand, it also has tremendous ability to show emotional resilience and courage as well, and strength, you know, and the ability to, you know, to keep going and to keep rolling with the punches and to keep pushing through. And, you know, it just shows Aries is really the most courageous sign outside of Leo, you know. It's fearless, completely fearless. So there is that element to it here that can really enable us to tap into something deeper within ourselves that perhaps helps us with courage that we need to have at this particular point in time relative to the circumstances that may be occurring in our life. But, you know, realistically, it is quite a challenging pattern, this one, because Chiron is in the picture and Mars and Pluto are as well. So this cycle is really just you could say a further extension or a further portal passage relative to perhaps what was activated during the solar eclipse in Libra, which happened 2 weeks before this full moon. So this is, it's just, you know, it's just now time to see perhaps even more clearly what are the things that have shown up for you. What are the matters? What relationships have you cleared out of your life? What have you ended? What have you come to realize within yourself about the matters of all of your relationships, actually, personal or otherwise, and your own participation in all of that, you know, your own autonomy, your own identity, you know, all those sorts of things. This is about re-examining all of that and really, truly releasing what needs to be discarded, because Pluto is now direct at the final degree of that sign to never return there. And Pluto amplifies things very, very much. And in this case, it's involved in a grand cross. So there is tremendous ability here to initiate, you know, perhaps things that we've been trying to let go of or release or just finish, you know, just complete, you know, whatever it is. But this is it's an initiative sort of journey and process. It's a It's a very dynamic pattern of energies. And the great thing about Cardinal, because it represents initiation, it inspires us to act on things. And square aspects, as I've said numerous times, although they are, for the most part, they can be really uncomfortable or extremely challenging, just very, very difficult. But because of that difficulty and because of the challenges that they produce, they encourage us to take action and to do something. We don't just sit there and do nothing when square aspects are hitting things off in our chart. They really cause us to take action. Now, in some cases, some people might not take action. They may resist the energy. That's probably more typical, actually, than not. But for those of us that are able to be, I suppose, honest and recognize what we do need to change and what we are ready to move forward towards, well, this is a great, portal here, inspiring initiation and the ability to have courage, right? And resilience, moon in Aries, to take those challenges on, very simply put. But fundamentally, this is a closure, a closing cycle. Look at Venus as well. She's at the last degree of Scorpio. And Venus in Scorpio certainly goes through an alchemical transformative process. She goes through a deep, deep journey in Scorpio where we must face our own personal limitations, and we must also face and recognize what we need to die to within ourselves or what we need to end in our life relative to relationships as well. And so here she is at an erratic degree, just gone past the opposition to Uranus. So there could have been a couple of days before this, leading towards this full moon. There might have been some sudden flash of insight, some sudden awareness or realization, or some opportunity to break through something that has been quite difficult to let go of, because the Venus in Scorpio has a very she's very invested from a soul level and emotionally very, very deeply. And so she needs to go through quite a few layers and quite a few processes before she can completely rise as the phoenix. The following day, Venus moves into Sagittarius. So things start to lighten up from that perspective. If I can, I will come back and talk about that, but I doubt that I'll be able to do a long session on that. As I said, I will probably be taking the next 3 weeks off. But it's important to bring this into the picture because this is showing us in this full moon, which started at the solar eclipse in Libra, the new moon, 2 weeks before this, that whole eclipse cycle is specifically to do with relationships, right? And so, 2 weeks later, full moon, Venus at the end of Scorpio. We can see there's something very significant closing here, a big chapter closing, or lots of chapters closing, big turning points taking place. And so even though when we look at this just at the surface level relative to the moon being involved in a grand cross, it can feel like this energy is, really difficult or really intense. But we must also remember that Pluto is now direct. So we are able to move forward, you see. We are able, the last 6 months, Pluto has been retrograde, right? And any planet that goes retrograde, and in this case, Pluto, is an opportunity for us to basically reflect and step within and sort things out internally, just to use simple language, right? And so when Pluto goes direct, which it did a couple of days ago, it's literally saying to us, okay, well, whatever we have been sort of processing and working through, good, bad, or ugly, or otherwise, in the last 6 months, now we are ready to move on from it. This is bigger than any other time relative to Pluto, because Pluto will not return to this degree again. So, that it's really obvious. And actually, Pluto and Venus have an exact sextile in this particular full moon chart as well. And that's really, really helpful because this whole lunation cycle, which began at the solar eclipse, has got to do with Venusian things, with relationships, with whom and what we love, and everything that we have learned and how we have been growing through the lessons that have shown up, the situations, the people that we've interacted with, whether we've had, a smooth path or not. Everything is there to reveal something to us about our growth. And so Venus sextile Pluto is really supporting this, the sort of like the culmination of where we have arrived, at this point, because we will not see another Libra solar eclipse until 2043. So this is it. This is like the final sort of chapter, if you like, where things are completely clearing out. And, it is up to us, though, relative to what we choose during this process. This energy is there and it's speaking very, very clearly and very obviously. But what we do with this energy and these portals is always up to us. As I said, people can resist things, and often people do. But regardless of that, what I see here is something that is a grand opportunity for us to really, really step forward and move on from things in the past. It's inevitable, right? That things end, that things change. The only certainty is impermanence, right? Nothing remains the same. Everything changes. And so the sky, just shows us that in its harmonious flow with all the different frequencies and patterns and energies and relationships of the that the heavenly bodies and the stars, that picture of the sky is a map, and it's just showing us opportunity really at the end of the day. And so that's the main thing that I really wanted to share today. I don't have too much more time because I've got to continue clearing out and packing and so forth. There was something else and it's just escaped my mind. Let me see. Venus is also trine Neptune. Venus Neptune is always a hard one, even in a softer aspect, because Neptune is, and it is the most difficult energy, without a doubt. Without a doubt. It typically brings disappointment and disillusionment. But, there is a trine aspect here, so maybe there's some opportunity to integrate something more beautiful, something that elevates you higher into yourself, into your self-worth, self-love, Venus, On the other hand, it can also highlight some disappointments as well. And because this whole chart here is intricately connected to that solar eclipse in Libra, which is about relationships, then, I think it's possibly going to show maybe, some sense of disappointment over certain things that we maybe are having to have to release, So, but I really like the sextile from Pluto. I think that helps Venus a lot in this case, and Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, the sign that she's in. So there's a reception going on there. There's also a mutual reception between the moon and Mars. Now, the Mars is fall, but there is a mutual reception between moon and Mars. And so mutual receptions basically can help the awkwardness, the difficulty, of the energies, that it can assist in some kind of way. So that's also a good thing as well. But fundamentally, to put it in a few words, this is a cycle, a full moon illuminating to us what actually really was activated during the solar eclipse, and certainly even before that as well. We could think about it from the point of view of the last, 17, 18 years. So it's, like I said earlier, it's cycle upon cycle upon cycle. And the full moon, it's only there for that moment. phase of the full moon is there for a couple of days, but the full moon at 24 degrees will only be there for that moment, right? So it's just, yeah, that opportunity to recognize these cycles that have been activated prior to the full moon. The Chiron, look, we know that every time Chiron shows up, it rips off a band-aid. It brings up what's really raw inside us, where there's some vulnerabilities. Chiron speaks to rejection, the fear of rejection, and so forth. So, that for some people, this might be a deeply emotionally wounding time because of what they've had to let go of, But the flip side to that coin is that when we can recognize and embrace what we're feeling, it doesn't matter what we're feeling. It's not about forcing ourselves to feel good, right? Or forcing ourselves to have any kind of feeling, but rather just allowing ourselves to feel whatever we're feeling, to allow that energy to move through us, right? So that we can move through it and move on and move ahead, So the flip side to Chiron there, although it can initially bring up quite a raw, aspect of our emotional pain that we've experienced or are feeling during this full moon, it's also the opportunity to work through that, and find a way to heal, whatever has caused us pain, by taking the initiative, by being courageous enough, and by taking action and being bold, Aries, these are all Aries words, by being courageous enough to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, and being, I suppose, even honoring and being sort of proud of how far we have come, Um, yeah, yeah, I think it's mainly the main points that I wanted to address. So, look, the truth is that, well, everything I said is true, but yeah, look, Moon Chiron is not easy, not easy. But I'm a realist, but I'm also an optimist, as opposed to a pessimist. So even though when I see an energy like that, I think, that's really, that can be really quite brutal, in some cases. But then on the other hand, I think to myself, which I have been thinking the last couple of days, look at what's happening in the Middle East, look at the um, continuous insanity that's going on there. Just innocent people caught up, in these personalities that are dominated by evil and greed, and sense of righteousness and sense of ownership. There's really no more place in this world for that kind of personality, unconscious diabolical behavior, but unfortunately it still takes place. And then I think about what's been going on in Florida, and there's lots of theories on that as well. Whichever perspective you take, it's up to you. But I'm bringing this up because if we are not any of those people affected by those severe tragedies, we should be, and even outside of that, we should always be grateful anyway, And also, the point to this context is that, we never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. And every day, that we are here and we have an opportunity to have a different experience and to learn and grow and to have some joy and whatever it is, it's just a gift all the time, and nothing is simple, nothing is black and white, and no one's life is completely free of challenges or pain or suffering. No one's life. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, there's a guy here in Australia, and there'd be millions examples like this, but for example, one of the richest men in Australia, James Packer, um, who was having a relationship with Mariah Carey many years ago. Anyway, he's one of the richest men in not only in Australia but in the world. And he's a Virgo, and when transiting Neptune opposed his sun, you know, he just had mental breakdown after mental breakdown after mental breakdown, you know, and he's never recovered. And this happened years ago. And he's got all the money in the world, but his life, mentally and emotionally, he's just distraught. He's a mess. He can't, you know, there's no ability to recover for him. He can't get back to where he was. So it's got nothing to do with how much money somebody has or how much power someone thinks they have. What goes around comes around, you know, and every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So things are rarely as they appear to us. And finally, the biggest and most important test that we go through, in my opinion, is we are tested with our ability to maintain faith, no matter what is going on. And that's the beauty of the resilience of spirit, that no matter what is going on out there, we need to keep going as long as we are here. That's why we are here. And this full moon, you know, you can also look at it like that. Whatever pain or difficulty comes up, it's about, you know, having the courage to initiate, to move through it. I'll sign off here and I will see you guys very, very soon. Sending you all many blessings for this full moon. I hope you are all doing well, and please reach out if you would like to ask me any questions about classes, readings, etc. See you all very, very soon. Bye for now.